They say every fortune has its shadow, and Michael Hartmann was about to meet his. The mansion that once felt like salvation now whispered in languages no human should understand. In every corner, every reflection, the price of his deal began to surface quietly, patiently waiting to collect its due. It began with a sound faint like a whisper slipping through the cracks of an old wall. Michael had been awake for hours, unable to sleep, pacing through the mansion's endless halls. Every portrait, every chandelier seemed to stare back at him with silent accusation. The whisper grew louder. It wasn't coming from outside, it was coming from within the house, from the direction of Sophia's room. Heart pounding, he walked slowly down the corridor, his steps echoing through the marble floor. He tried to convince himself it was the wind, or maybe a dream. But deep down, he knew this house had started talking back, and it was calling his name. Michael stopped at the end of the hall. The door to Sophia's room was shut tight, but the whisper hadn't stopped. It had turned into a murmur, layered voices overlapping like an echo from another time. He reached for the doorknob, cold metal biting his palm. The moment his fingers touched it, the murmur ceased. Silence. Heavy, unnatural silence. "Sophia," he called softly. No answer. Only the ticking of a distant clock somewhere below. Then, just as he turned away, the door rattled violently once, twice, as if someone inside was trying to get out. Michael stumbled backward, his heart pounding. "Who's in there?" he demanded, but the door didn't answer. Only then did he hear it, a child's laughter, faint and echoing through the corridor behind him. He turned around sharply. The hallway was empty. The laughter came again, closer, this time playful yet hollow. It wasn't coming from Sophia's room anymore. It was circling him. Michael whispered under his breath, "This can't be happening again." The laughter faded into whispers, faint but unmistakably real. It drifted down the staircase that spiraled into the lower levels of the mansion. Michael hesitated, his pulse echoing in his ears. The air grew colder with each breath. He gripped the handrail, its surface slick with dust, and began his descent. Each step creaked, its sound swallowed by the suffocating quiet. Shadows danced on the cracked walls, and faint murmurs seemed to slither along them. Voices of people he could almost recognize. "Michael, come down." The voice was calm, familiar. It wasn't the child anymore. It was deeper, older, and it was calling his name. At the bottom of the stairs, the air was damp and heavy with the scent of rust. A single bulb swung from the ceiling, flickering erratically. Beneath its light stood an old iron door, half covered in cobwebs. Michael paused. The whispers had stopped again, replaced by the steady dripping of water somewhere in the dark. He wiped the sweat from his forehead and took a shaky breath. The door bore a rusted nameplate. The letters were faded, but he could still read them. Project Eden. His eyes widened. That name hadn't been spoken in 10 years. The iron door groaned open, its hinges crying out after years of silence. A gust of cold, stagnant air rushed past him, heavy with the scent of chemicals and decay. Michael covered his mouth and stepped inside. The room was vast but cluttered. Rows of glass containers lined the walls, filled with murky, fluid and shadowy shapes that looked almost human. Tables were scattered with old files, rusted instruments, and notebooks with the same logo stamped on every cover, the mark of Eden. As his flashlight swept across the room, it stopped on a familiar object, a small toy bear, torn, stained, but unmistakable. It was Sophia's. His hands began to shake. He remembered that bear being buried with her, but here it was, sitting perfectly still as if it had been waiting for him. Michael's breath quickened. He searched the tables, brushing away the dust until his hand found an old cassette player. It was still plugged in, as if someone had been here recently. He pressed play. The static hissed for a few seconds before a voice filled the room, his own voice. Test subject 04 to be. Female, age 7. Regeneration incomplete. Subject shows neural decay beyond control. His chest tightened. The tape continued, and another voice spoke, a woman's voice, trembling, emotional. "Michael, please stop this. She's just a child." Then the tape ended with a click. Michael stood frozen, the echo of the recording still ringing in his ears. The truth he had buried was clawing its way back to the surface. He turned toward the far side of the room, where an old monitor sat on a steel cart covered in dust. A stack of tapes lay beside it, each labeled with dates that made his stomach twist. The final months before Sophia's death. With trembling fingers, he inserted the top tape. The screen flickered to life, bathing the dark room in ghostly blue light. A recording appeared, a sterile white room, a metal bed, and a child sitting quietly, her small feet dangling. Her face was pale, her eyes distant. And then she looked toward the camera. Michael gasped. It was Sophia. The screen crackled, distorting the image, but he could still hear her voice soft, tired, and frightened. "Daddy, it hurts." The sound tore through him. His breath hitched. The video shook violently, then cut to black. For a long moment there was only silence and Michael's muffled sob echoing in the cold laboratory. Michael staggered back, clutching his chest as if the air had turned to lead. The truth was unbearable. He hadn't just lost his daughter. He had created her suffering. The whispers returned louder now, echoing from the walls, from the floor, from the very air itself. They repeated her words, her cry of pain, her plea. "Daddy, it hurts." The room began to shake. The lights flickered violently, glass shattering from the walls. He fell to his knees, covering his ears, but the voices only grew stronger, swirling into a deafening chorus that filled the entire space. Then through the chaos he heard one last sound, the faint giggle of a child, soft and sweet. And in the reflection of the monitor just behind him, a small figure stood. Michael didn't dare to turn around at first. His breath came shallow, ragged. The faint giggle echoed again, closer this time, just behind his ear. He turned slowly, every muscle trembling, and what he saw made his knees go weak. Sophia stood there, or something that looked like her. She wore the same white dress. She was buried in the fabric, now stained and tattered. Her skin was pale as paper, and her hair the same soft curls he used a brush before bed hung limp and shadowed her face. But her eyes, they weren't her eyes. They glowed faintly blue, hollow, distant-like, looking into the reflection of a memory long dead. "Daddy," she whispered, "you promised you'd never leave me." He took a trembling step forward, his voice cracking as he spoke. "Sophia, I tried to save you." The girl tilted her head, the faintest smile crossing her lips. Then she spoke again, this time into voices, hers and something darker beneath. "You did this to me." He fell to his knees, tears streaking down his face. His voice was raw, desperate. "Sophia, please, I didn't mean to. I was trying to fix what they did to you." The air trembled. The girl's expression didn't change. She stepped closer, each footstep echoing with a metallic clang on the floor. The temperature dropped instantly, his breath now visible, turning to frost. "Fix?" The voice hissed, now clearly not just hers. "You turned me into this." Michael shook his head violently, clutching his ears. The walls around them began to crack, the ceiling dripping black liquid. The whispers grew into screams, overlapping voices of children crying, begging, calling his name. Then Sophia reached out, a hand small, delicate, trembling. For a moment it looked human. Michael, broken and trembling, reached out too. His fingers brushed hers, and suddenly every light in the room exploded in a blinding flash. Silence. When Michael opened his eyes, everything was white. No walls, no ceiling, just an endless sterile expanse stretching in every direction. The air was still, unnaturally calm, and the weight in his chest had vanished. He looked down and saw his reflection on the white floor, perfectly clear to clear. Where am I?" he whispered. A small voice answered from behind him. "You're home, Daddy." He turned slowly. Sophia stood a few feet away, smiling softly the way she used to before she got sick. Her hair was brushed neatly, her dress clean and bright. She looked whole again. Tears filled his eyes. He stumbled forward, laughing through his sobs. "Sophia, my God, I thought I lost you forever." She tilted her head, her smile gentle but distant. "You did." And with that, the white around them began to crack, faint lines spreading like fractures in glass. The illusion was breaking. The world began to fracture around him. The white floor split apart, revealing darkness beneath, an endless void that pulsed like a heartbeat. Michael tried to hold Sophia's hand, but she was fading, her form dissolving into static light. "Don't go," he shouted. "Please, not again." Her voice echoed faintly as her figure disintegrated into the air. "You were supposed to let me rest, Daddy." The cracks widened, swallowing the light. The walls melted away into shadow, and suddenly he was back in the ruins of the laboratory. The monitors were shattered, the air thick with smoke and dust. Everything was burning except for one thing. Sophia's toy bear sat on the floor, untouched, clean, glowing faintly. Michael dropped to his knees, his body shaking. He reached out and clutched the bear to his chest, sobbing into its fur. In the faint glow of the dying lights, his reflection in the shattered glass wasn't his own anymore. The bear flickered. A faint sound crackled from within it, a voice distorted, layered with static. Michael froze, gripping the toy tighter. "Daddy," the voice whispered again. "Why didn't you stop?" His heart pounded. He turned the bear over, its button eyes staring blankly back. The small speaker hidden inside had never worked since the accident. He had kept it only as a reminder, a relic of guilt. But now it spoke. The static grew louder, shifting between tones, forming fragmented words. recordings, memories, echoes of Sophia's laughter buried in the noise. Michael stumbled backward, clutching his head. The lab lights flickered erratically, and through the cracked mirror across the room, he saw movement. Another version of himself standing inside the reflection, motionless, staring back. The reflection's mouth moved. "You never built a machine for time, Michael. You built one to forget." The words hit him like thunder. Every memory he'd held, every theory, every sacrifice, all of it bent, twisted by grief. He fell to his knees again, screaming, as the glass trembled and finally shattered, raining down like shards of light. Silence returned. The smoke cleared slowly, revealing a narrow corridor stretching into infinity. The air shimmered with faint golden light. Michael rose weakly, holding the bear to his chest. Each step echoed endlessly, the kind of sound that felt alive. On the walls, faint images appeared, moments of his life replaying like film projections. Sophia's first steps, his wife's smile the day the machine exploded, his trembling hands signing the experiment approval. Every choice, every sign. He walked deeper, his breathing steady now. The corridor narrowed, the light dimming to a warm orange hue. At the far end, a door waited, wooden, ordinary, glowing faintly. He stopped before it, eyes full of exhaustion and peace. "If this is death," he whispered, "then maybe I deserve it." He opened the door slowly, and beyond it, only light. Endless, radiant light. His voice, barely audible, carried through the white glow. "I'm coming home, Sophia." The corridor faded, the echoes silenced, leaving only the sound of the bear's soft lullaby playing one last time before everything dissolved to white.